So hello all and welcome. It is I, the realist philosopher. So how y'all doing today? Hope you're all doing good, fine and well. Wish I could say I was doing better, but I ain't. Uh, Not feeling good. Doesn't feel like I'm recovering. I'll admit it feels like I'm actually getting worse, which is weird. Should be recovering. I think it's got something to do with the too limited diet on maybe, coupled with just exercising when I shouldn't be, or too much exercise. Just maybe being a little overly ambitious. So I'm just going to try and rest. And when I feel better, like doing stuff again to recover from my heart attack, I will just like start out with much less and maybe every other day or something, as little as possible, but still, have some kind of effect. And that brings me to this video: suffering. Life is suffering. Life is pain. If you don't experience suffering and pain, you're not going to really be able to survive, go through, manage, deal with the actual real hardships of life, and find any greater meaning beyond the momentary pleasures of the here and now, i.e. hedonism. This is one of the problems with our most current generation of young people. They don't grow up experiencing any suffering. Now, I had training very early on. I call it that because I think that's what it is in a nutshell. I look at it that way. I take what I learned, I see it as training, and use it for something positive. My philosopher training started when I was very young, and I suffered a great deal. And my most recent brush with death, which is probably the most suffering I've experienced in a short-term period in terms of intensity. It's not the most suffering I've experienced. I grew up suffering a great deal, but at a lower intensity most of the time, and merely with the possible but less likely threat of death hanging over my head, so long as I didn't as long as I didn't piss off my father too much, as long as I managed him and was able to employ my mind, my intellect to handle a situation and make sure that it didn't become something too out of control, where I would essentially end up dead, because my dad was a big guy, 300 pounds. He liked to toss around little 50-pound kids. So I had to learn real quick, yes, how to manage and manipulate him. Oh yes, you got to learn to manipulate. You got to learn to read other people. Got to learn to handle people. So there was always an overarching threat of possible bodily harm, but generally speaking, death was certainly possible, but it wouldn't be something intentional. The dude, 300-pound man, former Marine, 50-pound kid, hits you too hard. His intent ain't to kill you, but he kills you. So that was the kind of threat I dealt with for my entire childhood, up until I left home at age 18. There was always danger, but it was manageable danger. And the threat of death was something that would be incidental, not really intentional. But this heart attack, the sepsis, the hospitalization, oh man, this was the closest I've come to death in my life. It taught me a couple things. One, I don't fear death, and I already knew that, but now I really, really, really don't fear it. In fact, I'm kind of looking forward to it. Because one of two things are going to happen. Either that's it, lights out, no more suffering, or there's something after, no more suffering. I get to explore the cosmos. Either way, I'm good. Well, that's okay with me. So I learned that much about myself, and I also learned that I had not fully explored and fully embraced and realized just how much suffering I can handle. Now, you see, a lot of reasons why people don't get where they want to be in today's day and age. This is something I've learned of late. And it's something I've pretty much known for a long period of time, but it applied to me also, so it wasn't something I wanted to talk too much about. Except for talking about myself as well, I was guilty also, is that people don't want to sacrifice. People don't want to sacrifice. They don't want to sacrifice their comfort. They don't want to sacrifice their short-term health in any way. Even if it's just, I'm not eating good food for a couple weeks or a couple months. Or, it's an uncomfortable environment and it won't be good for me. People, that's what sacrifice is. You give up something good for long-term gain. You give up something good to experience something unpleasant because it's going to pay off greater than where you currently are in the present. People don't want to. Oh, no, my mom and daddy raised me the way most parents raise kids today, is helicopter parents. Kids today, they never gone through any suffering. What suffering have they gone through? I went out for football, got me a bunch of concussions, so I can be drooling at 45. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, wonderful. That's real brilliant. Not quite what I'm talking about. That's not the kind of sacrifice I am referring to. There's no sacrifice there. That's just stupid. Don't play football. Even if you're getting paid lots and lots of money. Maybe only then. Maybe only if you like a really fast quarterback. And even then, I don't know. Is it worth the, dings that your cranium is going to take, and you're going to end up, not able to chew your food at age 55 with lots of people taking care of you? Yeah. You suffered so much brain damage that you lost your ability to think logically, and you lost your impulse control, and you spent all your money, so you ain't got that either. So what do you got to show for all your sacrifice? No, I'm talking about discriminating, well-informed, self-serving sacrifice. Doing things that are unkind, unpleasant, unkind to you, unkind to your body, unpleasant, uncomfortable, that other people don't want to do, won't do. Nobody wants to do it. Oh, I'm going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be difficult. Nah. I'm just going to go get a degree. I'm just going to go get myself a freaky-deaky degree. And then I'm going to live this freaky-deaky life. I'm going to be all comfortable. And I won't have to really work that hard. And, I can just sit behind a desk and while the day away playing solitaire, and I get a big fat paycheck. This is all because nobody wants to suffer. Nobody has suffered. They don't even know what suffering means. And the moment they have to experience some suffering in a life that's never had any, they whine and complain about the injustices of the world and how they're entitled not to suffer because they've never suffered. So clearly they're entitled not to. Yeah. These are your typical wokey, loser, leftist, pinko, commie, scumbag, socialists that want everything for free. Right? They want everything easy. Because everything should be easy. Because everything's been easy for them their entire freaking lives. Yeah, suffering's unfair. Unfair! We like the idea of unfair because then we can take the things that require us to suffer and we can brand them as unfair. And then we can use social constructivism and the government and the voting apparatus to make things fair. Even though that's done like completely subjective, what you think is fair, I may not think is fair. That's just a human construct. That's a construct of the mind. There's no such thing as fair. Fair doesn't exist in the world. Learn it. Deal with it. Life is suffering. Life is pain. And I'm going to tell you something. You think there's people out there that are going through life and la-di-dying. They never suffered anything. People got births. There are exceptions. There are people out there might say, oh, well, look at Elon Musk. Ooh, he ain't suffered. Look at him. He's had a great life. Mommy and Daddy were rich and la 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 bullshit. And, it's just cope to justify your own loserdom. What has he suffered? How do you know what he suffered? Isn't he autistic or something? Well, how do you know what kind of life this dude has had? You don't know. I don't think this guy runs around. He doesn't seem the type to me to run around moaning and groaning and complaining. But, of course, if you're a lefty, that means that, he had nothing to complain about that. If you've never suffered, well, then, look at him. His life looks great. How has he suffered? Trust me. Elon Musk has suffered. I guarantee you he has suffered. And the amount of understanding that you have of how the real world works is commensurate with how much you have suffered. I've suffered a lot. I understand how the world works. Baby! That's why I try to talk to you people as much as I possibly can and educate you about how reality functions. And this recent brush with death that I experienced really, woke me up to the fact that I haven't been willing to sacrifice enough either. That's right. Me! The prognosticator of all prognosticators. I'm admitting to you, I'm preaching to you right now, I haven't been willing to suffer enough. I remember instances not too long ago, in the very recent past, where I could have made good money, a lot of money, where I had an opportunity to do something that would have paid off. But it was not a ideal scenario. Let's just say that. Lots of discomfort, lots of extended levels of discomfort and pain for what seemed like a long period of time. But in the grand scheme of things, wasn't very much at all. I'd be uncomfortable. It'd be unpleasant. I'd have some pain. I wouldn't have much personal time for a very short period, and then I'd have stacks of cash. But I said, no, I don't want to sacrifice. I'm old. I'm old, man. Pushing, I'm getting up there. I can't handle that. It's too much. It's too much discomfort. I'm very ensconced in my life right now. My comfortable, easy, normal, predictable life. You know what happened? I suffered anyway. Not only did I suffer, but I didn't get paid for it. In fact, I lost all my money and went into debt, about $100,000. Spent a month in the hospital. Had some fun coma time. Don't remember that. I don't remember any light. Was there a light? I don't remember the friggin' light. Well, I didn't die, technically. I came close. They were like, you came close, buddy. This was some bad shit. You were stoic for too long. Went into shock at work. Shivering, shaking, collapsed. Got a bag attached to my leg, 24/7, sucking out pus and my muscle that's been eaten away by the infection, and blood clots coming out of my leg, one of which caused a heart attack. Oh, yeah! And you know what? It didn't matter. See, I tried to avoid suffering. What happened? I suffered anyway. Worse. Much worse. In the process of trying to avoid the suffering. Let's do things the easy way, baby. Let's do things the easy way. I'm gonna save a bunch of money at my nice, easy work, and then I'm gonna take that money and I'm gonna move to a place that is more friendly, welcoming to people of my ilk, my skin color, and who are more culturally in line with myself, which didn't even turn out to be the case. This is just a bunch of hicks here that ain't too bright and very closed minds, and so that didn't even work out too well. But I got a good job offer. Let's pick up my life and let's move and do all this. It's a bit of a pain in the butt, but I'm not doing those things that I avoided doing that would have paid off better and give me more options, but I didn't want to suffer. And what happened? Suffered anyway. On the road to avoid a thing, you're oftentimes going to run right smack dab into it. Try to avoid suffering, you suffer. It's unavoidable. No, there's some people out there that avoid it because they got mommies and daddies with trust funds. And they got all the material needs in the world, and thereby you think they're not suffering. And they go through their life, blissfully ignorant of the suffering and the hard work and the labor that other people have to put out. So they got it made. I got news for you, they don't. They suffer too. They suffer as well, in different but more profound ways. No, my friends. There is no escaping it. There is no getting around it. It's not a barrier you can bypass, hop over, climb over, jump over. It's always there. You can put it off. You can maybe take a detour. See a crash there, you see. Suffering is like an unavoidable car accident. Well, it's like trying to... You're going to eventually run into one, right? But with suffering, you try to avoid one, you're just going to run into another. It's unavoidable. Anybody gone through life without experiencing a traffic jam, experiencing a car crash, and you get stuck in traffic, and wouldn't you just love to not have to deal with that? Is that realistic? You suddenly got to become Superman and be able to fly out of there and, in leaps and bounds over tall buildings, get past it that way? No. You can't avoid it. And in the case of suffering, in trying to avoid it, you actually meet it. Suffering's a part of life. So instead of avoiding it, embrace it! Embrace it, mofo. Bring it about! Bring it about! Steel yourself against it so that you are as resilient as humanly possible. Because I tell you, there's no getting around it, no avoiding it. My case is a perfect example of that. 3-4 months back, I could have suffered a little and I'd be sitting pretty. And I didn't do it because for like a month, wouldn't have been able to experience my, pleasures, my comfort. That's too difficult. I can't do that. It's going to be so hard. It's going to be so painful. This opportunity, it would be just too much for me. And, I got to go through all this and that. That's too much suffering. That's too much hardship, and I'm getting too old for that. And I made all these excuses. And I opted to, I'll get that. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do this, something else. And that project could have turned into something more long-term, but it was too much. I told myself that. I didn't want to suffer. Well, look at me now. Can barely walk. Try to exercise. I'm exhausted afterwards for 2 days. My heart's fucked. My knee is a mess. Can barely put any weight on it. The moral of this story is, if you see an opportunity where you can benefit greatly, and it will give you more success, more wealth, more of the things you want, improve your life, improve your well-being, but you're going to have to suffer a lot for it. Do it. Doesn't matter. Too old, not too old. It'll be painful. It'll be uncomfortable. You won't be able to play your games. You won't be able to practice this or do that. You'll be working 16-hour days. Do it anyway. That's why you do it. That's life. And the people that are willing to do those things, who are willing to suffer, not just in the short term, but in the relative long term. Not their entire life, of course. Why do you want that? You sacrifice comfort and enjoyment and access to the things you're passionate about in the short term so you can enjoy them far longer in the long term. That is intelligent, informed, discriminating sacrifice that serves your own well-being, which makes it morally correct as well. One can make an argument that suffering in and of itself is not only a part of life, but sort of kind of a requisite to understand how the world works. That is my view, and I think too many people out there, too many of you out there, and I'm guilty of this as well, have spent far too much of your life avoiding hardship, avoiding suffering. And instead, you need to embrace it and suffer as much as you can, so long as that suffering improves your life in the long term. And the more you try to avoid such, the more you're going to suffer in ways that detract instead of adding on to the quality of your life. I am the Realist Philosopher, and I wish you all a good and pleasant day. Take care.